Where do we? Is it the same link?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, Hey guys, we're going to be going in about 5 minutes. So that's up. We have 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Right from like here to like and I'm in charge of the stream. We're gonna start in like 2 minutes. It's going. This is weird. You're gonna go after 5 minutes, and then you Alright guys, come on in and take a seat. Come on in. If we run out of seats, we have other seats that are just folded up. I can grab them. But we should have enough seating between the ones here on the floor and then the side. Come on in, make yourselves at home. Thank you guys so much for coming today. We had a fair number of people that RSVP'd from Eventbrite, and so they may be trickling in a little bit late. So we're just gonna ask one of my partner interns to kind of usher them in if they come in late. My name is Ted Kraus. I'm one of the people that's running the Techcode side of the Open Innovation Program that we did with Bayer. And we have some honored guests today that I wanted to invite up here to speak and say a few words before we actually get started. So first, I would like to invite Mr. Tu. He's from the consulate. He's the technology counselor from the Chinese consulate in San Francisco. Please come up and say a few words. Thank you.
Respected experts and entrepreneurs, good afternoon. It's my great pleasure to attend the Bayer Life Science, iHub, and Techcode Open Innovation Program Demo Day. First of all, I would like to express my warm congratulations on the smooth graduation from excellent and successful demonstration for every project. As you know, China's science, technology, and innovation have achieved great results during the past few years. But compared with the developed countries in the world, including the United States, the gap is very large. The United States is the most developed country. China is the largest developing country with a large market, abundant human resources, and low carbon costs. So I think that the cooperation between China and the United States in technological innovation and entrepreneurship should be said to be very complementary. The cooperative potential is very large. So I think that through friendly cooperation, it is entirely possible to achieve mutual benefits and win-win results. China is speeding up economic construction, implementing a more active open policy, which also includes science, technology, and innovation, and strengthening open cooperation with the outside world. The door to China's open will not be closed, and it will only grow bigger and bigger. Furthermore, the environment for innovation and entrepreneurship in China is also improving and will become better and better. So if you are willing to cooperate with China, I think that you will certainly to be able to find opportunities and bring your projects to China to realize mutual benefits, and you will become friendly ambassadors of exchanges and cooperation between our two countries. In this regard, our Chinese Consul General in San Francisco will be very happy to try our best to assist you. Finally, regardless of whether your project will be located in US, China, or other countries, I sincerely wish that in the future, your project will be well developed and make a contribution to human health. Thank you all.
Thank you.
So it's wonderful that we're able to have guests like Mr. Tu. If any of the startups in the program want information on working with the consulate, we can help facilitate the cooperation. So just please talk to Techcode and we can facilitate that. Next up, I would like to ask Dirk from Bayer to come and say a few words. He's the head of the iHub.
Hi, yeah, so I'm Dirk Schadler. I'm heading up our digital innovation team here in the US. We also have team members that are actually in China. In Shanghai, we have 2 people, and in Tel Aviv, a person, and then in Berlin, 1.5 persons. And the biggest team is here in Mountain View, actually recently relocated to San Jose. And what we do is we are trying to work on new technologies together with technology companies. And we are always looking for partnerships. We are also maintaining a good relationship with the whole investor community. So, I know there are some investors here, one of them my neighbor, actually. So surprised to see you here, Angela. So if you haven't been in touch with Bayer and you're in the VC community or you're an investor, so more than happy to connect with you while you're here. I'm very happy that you came to join us here. Also, I'd like to just, my team, raise your hands quickly. If you want to talk to any of us, there's a few people here from Bayer. I got in touch with Techcode a few years ago already, when you had one of these events here, and I was quite impressed about the companies that came here. I know for that event there were a lot of companies that came actually from China here, and it was a bit hard for them to always speak English or so, but I was amazed about the speed and the innovation force behind it. And I thought, okay, we got to find a way to access also that ecosystem, because when you're in Silicon Valley, sometimes you get the impression everything goes on here, and there's a lot of success stories, of course, but there's a lot of other things outside. I mean, we as Bayer, of course, given that it's a German company, we are, of course, very familiar with the European developments and what companies are there. We know the US quite well, but China is a little bit more difficult for us. And so I was very happy to get in touch with Michael and start that relationship a year ago, 1.5 years ago now, and also now to launch this 3-month program together with you. Which was really successful. A lot of companies applied. We got to select the best ones that are here today. And I also would like to thank both Michael, you, and also Ted and Anna for running this program, because it's a lot of legwork behind it. It's curating. It's kind of like getting everybody involved and making sure that there's a good outcome out of it. So with that, I'd like to hand it back to Ted, and hope you enjoy the event.
Thank you so much, Dirk. Last but not least, I would like to invite my partner Michael up to say a few words. Michael is one of the partners here at Techcode.
Thank you. So thank you so much for coming to Techcode this afternoon. I'd like to congratulate to those 7 companies to be selected to this accelerator program, and also being going through this what we call the 100-day program, right? So this is a great achievement, and I'd like to welcome Mr. Zhu. Thank you so much for your support. And Dr. Tan is our CEO, Techcode CEO, US CEO. So very support for this Bayer Techcode Accelerator program. And of course, very appreciate Dirk and your team to give us the opportunity, right? Work together over the last half year, and we learned a lot, and hopefully, this program will generate some outcome for both Techcode and also Bayer, right? And last but not least, I'd like to thank Ted and all the team hard work over the last 3 months, and it's been tremendous experience for us. And hopefully, we will build a more deeper long-term relationship with Bayer. And I really believe that Techcode can leverage its global resource and also experience work together with large corporates like Bayer. Finally, hope you enjoy this event, and hope the 7 companies have great success in demo. Thank you so much.
Okay, Michael, thank you so much. So we're going to actually start the startup demo day presentations. We're going to go sort of in an order. This order is not by like the best startup to the worst startup. It's just sort of general. I just kind of like made it up, to be honest with you guys. So it's a great order. I would like to invite BioAge Labs, Chris from BioAge, and I'm just going to make sure that our quick share works, and then we're good to go. I'm gonna. The startups will have about 15 minutes to talk, and then we're going to open it up to QA from the audience. It's not just the front stage, it's from anybody. So, thank you so much.
Hello. As you said, my name is Chris Morrissey, and I'd like to thank you guys for the opportunity to come down here and talk to you a little bit about our company, BioAge Labs. And primarily I'm here today to tell you that we're facing a looming demographic challenge, a crisis really. The United States population is getting older. It's getting older fast. By 2050, there'll be nearly 88 million Americans that are over 65. So that's 1 in 4 of all Americans will be over the age of 65, and they're going to be facing a hugely increased incidence of all these chronic diseases that most of us fear. But it's not just an American problem. It's not just America that's facing this. In fact, Japan is going to be the country that faces this crisis first. Germany is not that far after. And China has a real big problem with an aging population coming down the pipe, even though it's a little farther out. And so, if we don't change the incidence of these diseases, if we don't change the incidence of these diseases, as I said, by 2050, when we have 88 million Americans over the age of 65, that'll mean 10 million Americans with Alzheimer's disease alone. And the numbers for cancer and diabetes and heart disease are all equally terrifying. I mean, this is enough to threaten the economy of, America, the greatest economy in the world. It's enough to threaten our economy, much less other nations. And everyone's going to be facing this. So that's why BioAge was started, is we wanted to see if there's something we can do about these increasing incidence of disease as we get older. And we don't have any conception that we're going to take this curve away, right? These diseases are always going to become more and more prevalent as you get older. But there's a lot of science over the last several years that shows that we might be able to move these curves to the right. So we might be able to postpone the increase in incidence of heart disease or Alzheimer's disease or whatever by 7 years, by 14 years. And that's what we're aiming to do. Now, fortunately, we're not the only people that realize that this is a problem. And therefore, we've been able to find several companies that have been willing to fund us in our initial round in our Series A last summer. It was led by Andreessen Horowitz. And we now have some money in the bank, and we're really ramping up to get this, to look at this hard. We've, thanks to the generosity of our founders, we've been able to put together an incredible team of scientists, engineers, entrepreneurs, and physicians to tackle this problem. We've also found quite a number of key advisors with years and years of experience in the pharmaceutical industry that are helping us drive our drug discovery program. So I'm not going to go into too many details, but I will give you kind of an overview of how we're approaching this problem and how the advantages of that, where it leaves us. And I will tell you that we now have kind of exclusive rights to a couple of different biobanks, and that gives us the opportunity to partner with people that are looking at additional indications that might be in these cohorts that we're not specifically targeting. So we're still small, we can't target everything. So in order for us to study aging and try and get at the things that underlie the increase in incidence of these diseases, we wanted to come at this as agnostic as we could. We knew we didn't know the exact organ or gene or system that is driving the increase in these diseases. We wanted the data to tell us. So we partnered with several biobanks. First one in Estonia, and now we have a partnership with one in Hawaii. They gave us historical tissue samples along with medical records for these people for 10 years in the case of the Estonian cohort, or 45 years in the case of the Hawaii cohort. And we're able to look at things in these tissue samples that can then predict the health outcomes of these individuals going out 10 or more years. And when we did this, we were actually able to come up with the best biomarker out there for all-cause mortality and for several of the diseases of aging. Now, that was based on our initial Estonian cohort. As we get in further into the Hawaiian cohort, our power in predicting the onset of these diseases is only going to grow. So our approach is really to start there with the data in humans, right? Traditionally, the drug discovery for aging started with a scientist that figured out he could get yeast or worms to live 50% longer, and then he would ask the NIH for millions of dollars to put it in mice, and he would wait years in order to find out if this has an effect. We knew we couldn't do that. You can't do that in humans. You can't give somebody a drug for 20 years before you find out if it's efficacious, right? So we had to turn that around. We had to come up with a biomarker that would be able to pick up on the impacts of these treatments in months, weeks or months instead of years or decades. But the advantage of that, coming up with that biomarker, is it also points us to the pathways that are important for driving these processes, right? So it gave us a rich list of targets to look at. And over the last 2 years, we've managed to, we've made our biomarker, we've built a cell culture lab, we've built our own vivarium in Richmond, and we've built a drug discovery program around the 2 of our top targets. Now, we got a bunch more that I would certainly like to look into, and several of us would, if we had the the money and the time and resources. But for now, we're going to drive these two targets forward, one biological and one small molecule, and start testing them to see if we can impact these diseases. And so I said we need these partnerships with these biobanks, and it's really a key asset for us, because you can't recreate one of these biobanks, not in any short period of time. You'd have to, if you collected the samples now, it really wouldn't do us any good for at least a decade, because we need to be able to know what the health outcomes of those people are going to be in order to be able to build a model that will predict them. And so this is really a key resource for us, but we don't have the resources to look at it fully. And there are certainly indications in there that other companies, Bayer or whoever, other pharmaceutical companies, might want to look at that we don't have the resources to do ourselves. And so we would be anxious to talk to people that are interested in partnering with us in looking at our cohorts on those indications. The indications that we are looking at are here, several to do with diabetes, the side effects of chemotherapy and cancer. I mean, all of these are around the diseases of aging. But as a company, we aren't going to take on aging directly. We're not going to go to the FDA and say we have a drug that will slow aging, because the FDA does not consider that a disease, right? But fortunately, several of these key targets that we're interested in, while they will, or we believe they will slow the rate of aging, they can also have a direct impact on some of these diseases of aging that the FDA already considers a problem. So we can drive them forward based on those specific indications, and then hopefully they'll be able to be applied more broadly as we move forward. So we have a number of indications we're looking at, and we are open to talking to people that would be interested in partnering with us on our cohorts to look at some of the samples we can't, or to do more of the assays that we can't afford right now. Because while these are incredibly powerful tools to do multi-omics research on these samples, they're not exactly cheap. So, and I will end there and take your questions.
So first, if there's any questions from investors, those would be the ones that we would want to ask first, and then after that, we'll open it up to the rest of the audience. So don't be shy, raise your hands, and ask questions. I have a question. I can start it off. That would help. So can you go back to the slide on the biobanks?
Yeah,
this one.
Details. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you guys? And I actually asked, Kristen is one of the other founders, and
Kristen's our CEO.
She's CEO. So I actually asked Kristen this too, and I wasn't sure. Are you guys still looking for more partners to partner with and groups?
We're always keeping our eyes open for biobanks that we can work with. Now, several of them are proprietary, and the people that own them are not interested in allowing people to have the rights to something that they find from that data. For these two cohorts, we do have the intellectual property rights for anything that comes out of our studies from these data, from these samples. But we are still keeping our eyes open. I mean, the broader a sample of nationalities and races that we include in our models, the better they'll be, right? So we have an Eastern European cohort, and the cohort from Hawaii was largely made up of people in the US Army with Japanese ancestry. But we're clearly interested in as many as we can find.
Okay, so maybe a follow-up, for an example of a follow-up is that, Techcode, we would like to maybe work with you guys and see if there's any way that we can help find a biobank, maybe not here in the US, but in some of the countries that we have other offices. So we should continue that conversation probably and try to collaborate there.
Certainly.
Any other questions from the audience? Or, yeah, Dirk?
So when you say that you don't have all the means to explore all the possibilities of your findings there, I mean, it seems like you raised 20 million, right? So
11 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still, that's money, right? So.
But it is a lot of money. But it also takes a lot of money to drive a drug discovery program, right? So it's a matter of priorities for us to say, how much of the money do we want to focus on this versus how much do we want to focus back on the front end to look at more of the targets that could be interesting, that we think might be interesting. And it's also a matter of, we've been scaling up and hiring people, but we don't have the manpower right now to look at everything that seems interesting.
And so you are focusing on this drug development, but you could also take the other way around and you could say, well, we are focusing on exploring the data that we have in order to provide that as an asset.
So we could, but we're not exactly interested in just selling our analysis to someone for cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, it's far more beneficial for us if we take a drug into clinical trials and get it through phase 2 or phase 3.
Sure.
And we want something that works, and we want something that works as fast as possible. I mean, most of the people involved in the company have been researching aging for years and are very dedicated to this area. So we want to show something that's efficacious in humans, not just for ourselves, but to get the general population to believe that there is something we can do about this problem, and that we don't have to just accept that we fall apart as we get older.
From a business model, are you striving to accelerate drug discovery and then sell those discovered drugs to the pharmaceuticals and just rinse and repeat?
Well, yes, we're certainly focused on accelerating the pace of drug discovery because, if you look at something like cancer, the pharmaceutical companies have done a great job of testing thousands and thousands of compounds against cancer, right? If you look at aging, there have been maybe 30 compounds tested, right? So no one is doing this yet, despite the fact that aging clearly underlies all of these different diseases. So we want to accelerate that process by designing a biomarker that you can use as a surrogate endpoint for these trials so that you can see improvements in a matter of weeks or months instead of years. That in and of itself is necessary to drive these, to accelerate these processes. Because like I said, you can't do clinical trials for years. Now, that being said, we're going to take a drug as far as we can go with it. We would be interested in partnerships all along the way, but right now we're not necessarily looking to sell off our two drug development targets.
Hey Chris, quick question. So what do you see your company, the core competence? Is in the machine learning part, or is in the the biomarker, to that kind of thing? What do you think that your core competence is?
Well, when our company was founded, we were very computationally heavy. Our CEO did her PhD in bioinformatics, and then she did a postdoc here at Stanford. My PhD is in bioinformatics. But you can do the machine learning on the data, and you can do the analysis, but this is biology. That the analysis in and of itself isn't sufficient. You have to show that it actually works. And that's why most of our hiring over the last year and a half has been biologists and building our own cell culture lab, building our own vivarium, so we can show that these things that we find aren't just computer flukes, but they're actually causative for these diseases. So I think our core competency has been evolving as we move across this.
So my next question, I have seen similar approach in many places, and what do you think in this new age? Because many companies are using machine learning in the drug discovery, and do you consider your company as a drug discovery company, differentiated from other because you choose a particular area, or you think you can also provide a service to other drug discovery companies? So what's the differentiate, not like compare with traditional drug discovery company, compare with everybody else? other domains using the similar approach?
Well, so we aren't the only people to realize that, there's a growing tide of biological data out there that is often, poorly understood, poorly analyzed, and that there's a lot of things that can be found in it. But there aren't that many companies that are focused on aging as the underlying driver of disease, and that are focused on accessing those underlying pathways that are driving our susceptibility to this. Now, there are a couple of other companies here in the Bay Area that are focused on aging. Unity, Calico, but I really think none of them are doing exactly what we are. And it's well publicized that one of the things driving pharmaceutical pipelines to dry up over the last year, over the last several years, is that there's not that many like single gene driven diseases left. We've identified a lot of them, but metabolomics, proteomics, these are kind of the newest technologies in the high throughput omics fields, and they certainly haven't been fully utilized to examine disease.
So you use machine learning as the first step of the discovery process. But you mentioned you only have 2 data sets now, right? Like both?
2 proprietary data sets.
Yeah,
or
together
2 large.
you roughly have 60,000 people in the data set. Right? To me, I think it's still not that many, because only a few, not that many will pass, for example, 80 years of age or past 10, 20 years in your data set. So how reliable is the indicators you found with your machine learning algorithms?
Well, it's better than the other biomarkers out there, and we're going to publish the lipids portion of our biomarker and predicting it soon. I'm working on that manuscript. But yes, I mean, we also incorporate a lot of public data. We've incorporated data from the Framingham Heart Study. We've incorporated data from the Baltimore longitudinal study. We've soaked up public data everywhere we can, but these two cohorts from these 2 biobanks are the ones that we have intellectual property rights to.
I got 2 questions. First is, if you go back to the other slides, like at different stage.
This one, or?
Yes, this one.
Okay.
Yeah, this one. So what stage is the company at right now? You guys are mainly still trying to find out the biomarkers, or you have a list of biomarkers identified, you have the drug diseases identified, and in the drug development stage?
Yeah, we're here now. We have several partnerships, HitGen and Wuxi to do the drug development. We are designing studies in mice. We have a study at JAX that's going to be starting this summer. So we're here now.
Okay. So my second question is, after the biomarker has been identified, the way that how you develop the drug is basically similar to the other people do.
Right. Once you have a compound that shows efficacy, then yeah, the drug development process, that's been worked out for us by pharmaceutical companies everywhere. Now, we can learn from their successes and their failures, but we don't have to break new ground there once we have a compound that works. And yeah, we are continuing to work on the back end as we move this forward, as more data comes in.
So under the umbrella drug program, I view there's different groups. There's lead identification and then lead optimization. Where are you in that?
So we've identified 2 lead targets, and we're working on optimizing both of them currently. We have a biologic and a small molecule, and they're kind of, they have different paths of optimization, but we're working on both of them concurrently.
Less technical question, but I realized we were talking about aging. One of the companies that are in some sort of the same direction, they talk about this longevity, human longevity. Is there a difference, or is there, how do you?
Well, no. So, you know, one of the problems is that when people talk about addressing aging, or people talk about longevity, people start thinking, oh, you know, they want to live forever, and you know, they're like immortalists or whatever, and that's really not the case. Our goal is, if you're going to live to be 84, let's have you be healthy and functional for 83 of those years. So we aren't focused on trying to escape death or even necessarily postpone it, but we are trying to postpone the onset of these diseases and compact that period of morbidity at the end when you're suffering from multiple chronic diseases. You know, the period in our life where we spend the vast majority of our healthcare money.
Okay, are there any other questions, or we're gonna move on?
Thank you much.
Okay, thank you so much.
Talk to me afterwards if you have any more questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, he's a great, easy person to speak with, so just walk up to him, but don't do it in here, because we're going to have another presentation right now. So I'd like to invite Sylvia from Mira, and just give us one moment to get it all set up. Do you need a Google or something? Have you used this before?
I think I've used that before. I think it was the last time we tried.
You have to go to your home screen. Is there like one of these things that'll say there's something to yeah, and then you can click share. Click to top left. Just 1 second, guys. Is there like a finder? Just trying to make it go. Okay. So we have Mira, and then on deck, the next startup is going to be Cocoon Cam. So we're going to do Mira, and then you just have to. Did you hit it? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, window. And then once it loads, you just click the button. So do you want to do this? Okay, just 2 seconds. All right. Ready? Yeah. So thank you guys.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sylvia. First, I think we really want to, appreciate this opportunity to work with the Bay Area and also work with Techcode for this, past about 3 months opportunity. We have enjoyed a lot and, got a lot of decent activity and opportunity. So today, just gonna briefly go over our company. So we are the first AI-empowered IoT health testing platform, and we already received FDA and CE registration. So this is our team. So my name is Sylvia. I'm the CEO for the US subsidiary. I have MBA from Cornell and a master from Columbia. So before I started Mira, I was a business director in Corning Life Sciences. So I was managing $100 million of global P&L. And today we have about actually 35 employees based in China and also in San Francisco Bay Area. And one of our investors is a co-founder of Alibaba Group. So this is a Mira product. So Mira has a test wand to sample body fluids, and the user will insert the test wand into the Mira analyzer, and which will read her hormone concentration in a number. And then this data will be synchronized to the Mira app. And we also have a cloud to learn the user-specific pulse pattern. So this product has a few features. So the first one is highly accurate. It's using immunofluorescence technology. So that's exactly the same technology that's being used in the hospital right now. So it's just like shrinking the lab equipment into a palm-sized device. And the second thing is like it's also highly convenient because it's a consumer-facing product. So it's an IoT. It has an IoT feature. So all the data is automatically managed and is synchronized. And also Mira has high quality and low cost. So we already received the FDA and the CE registration, and we're working on our CFDA. And also we manufacture by ourselves. So we built 11,000 square feet of GMP in China, which is ISO 13485 certified. And we have a global market access in the US, in Europe, and to China because of the registration and our team presence in both countries. And the application including women's health and the general wellness and the chronic disease. So when we're trying to get pregnant, we have multiple pain points. So the first one is the existing ovulation prediction kit is using the heart threshold to determine if you're ovulating or not. But every woman has high inter-woman and inter-cycle variability, so that caused a lot of missed peak. And the second thing is that the popular temperature methods only captures the ovulation after ovulation happens. However, the fertile window for a cycle is 4 days before ovulation until 1 day after ovulation. So if you got to know after your ovulation, you missed the majority part of your fertile window per cycle. So based on that, I'm gonna tell you a few features of Mira. So the first one is Mira is highly accurate. So we have gone through clinical trials and we have reached 99% of accuracy. And this is because we track the hormone quantitatively. So we track the actual hormone number and also plot out the curve for the user. And the second feature is we provide personalization because we have the actual hormone concentration. So our AI on the cloud can learn this woman's specific pattern. So this provides the ovulation prediction that just works for this person. And Mira is also easy to use. It's an IoT product, so you don't have to do any manual charting, and that's very important for a consumer application. And also we're building a telemedicine platform so the users can get their questions answered from doctors on time. So instead of going to Facebook where everyone is like blinds leading blinds. So our go-to-market strategy, so in the US, and we plan to launch in the Q3 of this year, so which is really soon. And our B2C marketing has been really successfully. So we have accumulated about 2,000 signed-up users in the past 45 days. And our current cost per lead is about $3, and our lead quality is really high because our email opening rate is about 50%. Usually on the industry average, it's only 15%. And also we're collaborating, B2B2C. So this is such as we have advisor who is from a Kaiser Permanente, and we're collaborating on research study and makes the medical community to back up and to endorse this product and its application. And lastly, we're opening the retail channels. So we project to have $3 million of sales in next year. And in China, we're doing a lot of B2C activity as well. But in addition to that, we are already collaborating with 2 major public Chinese pharmaceutical companies on distribution. And they have really strong access to the market, such as 1.8 million doctors in China. So they share the same doctor space. So going through them basically make our brand image really strong and the market access really broad. And we project to have $9 million in China in 2020. So this is our revenue projection. Not gonna go through the detail, but basically you can see one thing is the Mira has a true global market access because we already have the registration. We have our own team in the US and in China. So you see the revenue projection is from 3 markets or 4 markets instead of just 1 market like a lot of other companies. And another thing is that Mira is a platform. Since we have already finished R&D and the registration on the device and the first test one, and in the future, we'll just be using the different test ones to test different diseases. And this will be rolling out pretty quickly. So that's why the revenue projection is gonna go really fast. So the Mira has been around for almost 3 years. And in the past 3 years, we have done FDA and CE registration. We have 35 employees today. We have 11,000 square feet of GMP, ISO 13485, and we have passed the clinical validation internally and also by CFDA in China. We own 18 IPs today, and we won the best startup of CES 2018. So we have received a lot of media traction during CES 2018, and we were on the CNN, Yahoo, Engadget, or so on. So this one talks about the Mira platform. So where we are is here. We're focused on the woman's health. But in addition to that, we're also going to move to general wellness. So those are like dietary health and the stress management. So everyone in the family will have a needs. And then lastly, we also will be working on chronic disease. So just to give you a sense about what is the woman health testing platform. So in addition to ovulation prediction, we'll be tracking a hormone called HCG. So this hormone will need to be double every 48 hours after you got pregnant. If your hormone level is too low, it's a sign of early miscarriage. Or if your hormone level is too high, usually that's a pathological condition such as molar pregnancy, which is a cancer. And at the same time, we'll be tracking FSH. So that's another important hormone to tell women about their ovarian reserve. So that's really help women to balance their, family planning. Do I still have enough eggs so I can delay my pregnancy for a few years? And regarding the general wellness, so a few examples. So one is like a stress management. So we have a biomarker called cortisol in your urine. Everyone's stressed out, but how much stress is really too much stress? And this hormone measurement could tell you if you're already getting into a pathological condition or you're just temporarily stressed out recently. And the dietary health really help people who wants to lose weight. So when you're trying to lose weight, you will have ketone in your urine, but too much ketone is toxic, and not enough ketone is not really losing your fat. So you want to track that for long term and also quantitatively so you can adjust your behavior. And lastly, Mira can also help you to track your kidney health at home. So this is really for grandparents, maybe someone who is 50 years old and above, or someone highly stressed out, not taking enough water, or having high blood pressure, or so on. And if you don't feel comfortable, and you can do a quick check to see if there's anything wrong with your kidney function. So that's pretty much that's it. And thanks for the opportunity again, and any questions?
Don't be shy.
So I see that your device is FDA Class 1 registered. Does it mean that your specificity and sensitivity is not supported by FDA?
Specificity, you mean the?
No, specificity of the test and the sensitivity of the test is not supported by FDA. That you don't have like data, like side-by-side comparison of the data with the current method and your method. Sure. File for the Class 1.
So first thing is, as FDA already registered, and that's Class 1. So Class 1 doesn't really, require you to provide the data upfront. It doesn't mean it's not an indicator to say you have the data or not. Just like the process doesn't really require. But at the same time, in China it's Class 2. So we have done 200 patient sample by ourselves and a 400 patient sample by a third party CFDA, and all this comparison. I don't have a slide right now, but all this comparison actually is like they measure by medical instrument, that urine sample by medical instrument, and also measure by Mira. And they plot that, and the dotted plot, and then they fit the curve of that. And we got R squared equal to 0.99. So that's really, really high correlation. So that's how the test was done. And then the specificity and sensitivity is usually a false positive or false negative indicator. So that's usually an indicator for qualitative test. If you're quantitative, we're more like measuring the correlation instead of, oh, drawing a line, here's positive, here's negative. Yeah. What's that? Say again? Can't hear you. Based on the body temperature? Yeah. So body temperature, we don't measure that, but our app is connected with the Apple Health. So if the user has another device can measure that, and we will incorporate the data into our algorithm. So our app has a line where she can also enter manually. But the basal body temperature, as I talked earlier, is that it doesn't really give you the